Voiceover Coffee Shop, Episode 3.
Welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we share our morning with some of the finest names in voiceover. And now, here's your host, voice actor Andrew Morrison.
Hi there. My name is Andrew Morrison, and welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we start our day with some of the finest names in voiceover. If you'd like to know more about me, feel free to visit my personal website at www.voicebard.com. In this episode, I continue my coffee with Paul Strikwerda, founder of nethervoice.com and Dutch English voice talent trusted to voice brands recognized worldwide. In our last coffee chat, we discussed his start as a voiceover artist, as well as the inspiration and imagination he draws from bringing voiceover projects to life. In this episode, we'll talk about making money in your PJs, not worrying about your voiceover competition, as well as presenting the value of yourself and being a magnet for potential clients. I like how it's a no BS way of thinking about the industry, but I like how you got the fundamentals of what you had learned over the years and put that on the paper, whether it be networking, how to make sure that you get paid on time. What was your inspiration for writing that?
Well, first of all, let me respond to what you say about me telling people the way it is, at least through my lens, right? Because it's a personal account,
Right.
and I never tell people I tell you the truth. It's my truth,
Right.
and a lot of people recognize the same experiences and say, "Well, yes, you can generalize that." But I get very different responses to my book because some people say, I'm so glad you finally tell it the way it is. It's not sugarcoating. And I'm grateful for that because now I know what I'm getting myself into or what I should avoid. And other people say, "Oh no, you're just trying to scare me, Mr. Strikwerda, because you are afraid to get competition and you want to scare away the competition." My answer is always, I'm no competition. Nobody sounds like you. You certainly don't sound like me. So why would you be competition to me? That's ridiculous. I don't try to scare people. I want to prepare people. That's the big thing. And, sometimes you have to be really blunt and tell people that things aren't always what my wife imagined what it was like to be an air hostess, traveling those beautiful destinations and meeting phenomenal people. It's a lot of hard work and most of it is boring. And you're dealing with people who love you and people who do not like you. And you record like 20 to 30 auditions a day. You'll never hear anything back. You never know why people don't hire you. It's really, really tough and lonely as well. So I wanted to give people really a good idea of what it's like, life as a voiceover. So they are prepared. That was my main inspiration, really. And also thinking back to how I got my start, learning from people who had already had quite the resume in the business. They selflessly spent hours and hours on preparing me for the road ahead. And it's the whole paying it forward thing, because why bother otherwise? If you have information that you think is worthwhile, if you don't share it, why bother? What is the worth of that? I started a couple of years ago, I started microblogging on Instagram. And today I wrote a thing about, is it really about making money or about making a difference, And of course, the money aspect of doing voiceovers is very important because we've got to keep this roof over our head.
Right.
But ultimately, money does not motivate me at all. I mean, most of the jobs, I negotiate a fee and then I forget about it and I let my office manager do the billing because I want to do the best job I can. And whether it's a job that is $250 an hour or I get $2,500 for an hour, I will do the same good job because that's my ultimate satisfaction, that my clients are happy with what I give them. So I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated by something else, like giving back, like contributing to my community, and also kind of, and might sound pompous, but also being kind of a moral compass for my community. because a big thing is ethics and integrity. And you probably know as well as I do that we love to talk about our clients, about the equipment that we use. What microphone are you using? What preamplifier? And how did you soundproof your booth? And it's all nice and well. But, at the end of that, I think it's pretty boring. And if I would write only about that, it would become a very small and thin book and very repetitive.
Well, none of it
There's more
matters.
to what we do than that. It's about who we are as a person. The type of jobs that we are attracted to and the jobs that we lend our voices to tells me a lot about you. But I've encountered as a voiceover, and sorry I'm rambling, but
No, this
this
is
is
great.
really, I
Great.
love talking about this stuff.
Yeah,
I
no.
encountered a lot of people who say, you know what, I don't care whatever script they give me, I will do it as long as they pay me well. And I can't stand that type of attitude. I say, you have your set of ethics, your set of ideals in life. And through your work, you embrace those ideas. And I would not be able as a voiceover to do my work properly if I were to voice something that I cannot agree with. For instance, I'm a vegetarian. I've started not eating meat when I was like 13 years old. So even though I could, as a voice actor, say, well, if they want me to promote beef, I'll do it as long as they pay me well. I would never be able to do that as a job. I would find it highly unethical. So I don't take those jobs. Same with things for cigarettes or other types of drugs. Or, for instance, I just rejected a very lucrative job offer that could have honestly paid the rent for a year, and I'm not kidding, from a very Orthodox church that wanted me to read parts of the Bible and then explain kind of a sermon of that based on that scripture. And somehow they got wind of the fact that I'm a minister's son. My father was a Protestant minister. So they said, what could be nicer than have a minister's son read bits of the Bible and then do the little sermon about it? He's used to the whole subject matter. So what could be nicer? But I always do research into my clients because I want to make sure that whatever I do, I want to be proud of. I want to be associated with causes that I can stand behind, and I don't want to work for jerks, right?
Right.
So I looked into that particular church, and I noticed that they had a very anti-gay stance, and they had some sermons printed out online as well that they wanted me eventually to read. And I said, I cannot do this. You're offering me a nice chunk of money that, as I said, would pay the rent for at least a year, but I'm not going to do it because it's against my principles. And so that whole ethical part is also what got me so fired up to write for my community and reach out to my community. And some people think that I'm kind of the moral compass or the conscience of the voiceover community, which is, I think, way too much credit. But at least I try a little bit to move minds and to push envelopes and start discussions.
Right. So, and you mentioned that no two voices are the same. So when you are going to, say, market to a new client or to somebody that you do stand behind, how do you approach them as, here's the value that I bring? How do you convince them of that value? Because we in the voiceover industry know the amount of work that goes into it and how each individual person is able to interpret a story differently. So how are you able to convey that value when you market?
One thing that I always remember is that the saying that people do things for their reasons, not
Mhm.
your reasons. Whenever I see voiceovers market themselves to the world, is they tell you the reasons why they think you should hire them. But those are their reasons and not the client's reasons.
Right.
So I think that as voiceovers, first and foremost, you need to listen instead of before you speak. But it's very hard because we get paid to speak, and you hear me talk a lot instead of listen, because we love to talk. But that's our big weakness too. So my main thing is really to listen to the client. What is it that you are looking and listening for? And see if what I have to offer is a match. Because if it's not a good match, I want to tell that to the client as well and recommend one of my colleagues who would be a better match. So I ask questions and have the client formulate what it is that they're listening for. and they give me certain buzzwords. And when I do my proposal, I make sure that I feed those buzzwords back to them so that I'm using their language and not my language, so that they speak in their terms and not my terms. And that's basically my technique. And it's I often compare to selling cars, because we've all gone to dealerships where we had this salesperson who lists all the benefits of that car, but you're only listening to the things that he likes. He likes the sports package, and he likes the stereo, and he likes the sunroof. But you're looking for a very simple car that gets you from A to B, and you're not interested in all that stuff. And there's this disconnect. And I'm always looking for the connect. So first of all, you need to create that rapport, that commonality, find things that you agree on, and become a little bit of buddies with the person that's hiring you. Because I think that once you become kind of friends with that client, it's harder for them to say no to you, right?
Right.
And so and by asking questions, I gave people the opportunity to talk. And there's nothing that people like more than talking about themselves. I mean, right now you're doing it to me. I love talking about myself.
That's why you're here.
I know, that's why you asked me, because it feels good. There's some kind of recognition and validation in that, and appreciation too. You said some very nice things about me and my books. That makes me feel good and makes me harder to resist your next question. So we have this thing going on that even though we've never met in person, and this is the first time that we speak, I think, wow, this Andrew guy, he's a nice guy. I'd like to drink a pint with him,
Yeah,
And I hope and pray it's mutual. And
absolutely.
if you were to hire me, you'd think of me. It's again, data doesn't really give you warm and fuzzy feelings. I
Right.
worked for this client and did that thing. I made so much money off that client, and my campaign that I was associated with was watched by 1 million people online. Those are just dry facts. They don't convince people. They don't give people the warm and fuzzies. No, it's the feeling that you give people when they talk to you. And that's really about listening carefully, finding what their needs are, and connecting those needs with what you have to offer, and then bring it together in one irresistible package.
So how do you initiate that conversation where you say, hey, this is within the realm of a kind of, say, e-learning, for example.
Mhm.
Say you want to dive into the e-learning platform and you're like, hey, I love the kinds of modules that these people are building and I would love to do voiceover for them. How do you initiate that conversation where you're, hey, I want to befriend this person without it being, oh, here's what I can do. Here's how I feel like I could benefit your company. Hire me. Like,
Exactly.
how do you start that friendship?
Right. First, you build with a connection. As simple as that, the human connection. And that's by being interested. First, you be interested, and then you can be interesting. But you have to build that bridge first. And that's by starting with very simple things, by paying people compliments. Everybody loves to hear compliments. But here's the thing, it has to be sincere. If you pay somebody a compliment, say, oh, that's a nice tie you're wearing, they immediately feel that it's not genuine. So you find something that you like about that person. So, for instance, I talked to somebody who was thinking of hiring me,
Hmm.
exactly in the e-learning business. And I said, you know what? You have a really nice voice. I said, have people told you that you really have a nice voice? Why don't you do it yourself? So it's a real compliment, but it's also based on fact, because this person had a really, really good voice. Maybe not exactly for what they were looking for, but very pleasant to listen to. I said, you could read a book to me and read me to sleep because I could listen to your voice forever. Oh, really? And people like that. That opens people up. I never thought of that. And then they said, well, how did you become a voiceover? So from me being interested in them, they become interested in me. And then we have a conversation. And then before you know it, we've been talking to each other for 15 minutes. I get to know her. She gets to know me. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but tell me about the project that you want to hire me for, and tell me about it. What gets you excited about this project? And when people approach me about these things, they've worked on the project usually for months. So it's kind of their brainchild. And it's like talking about their child. So once again, You've started bringing them into a good mood by saying something nice about them, compliment them. And then secondly, you bring them in another good mood by having them talk about something that's very dear to them. So that's already 2 pluses. Plus, I get to listen to their voice, listen to their buzzwords, how they approach life, what they don't want in a voiceover. That's just as important as what they, for instance, somebody said, well, we used to work with so-and-so, and that didn't really work out. Oh, I said, tell me about it, just like that. And I leave it open. I don't say a thing because I want them to start talking. I don't want to come across as, oh, he's on a fishing expedition. I'm doing what you're doing now. You could intervene and say, Paul, it's a nice answer. Let me go to the next question. No, you're quiet.
No.
And let me talk again and again. And the more they talk, the more information I get and say, well, tell me about what was it about that relationship that did not work out? And they give me the recipe of how not to do it. So I know which traps and mistakes to avoid. So I can be their hero and bring home the bacon and win the day, So it's really being interested in that person, asking the right questions, and then shut up and listen.
So how do you
real?
So how do you convert that over to, like, say, email marketing? Because you can't just open up an email, find a potential client, and then just send them a bunch of compliments. They're going to eventually come back with, well, what does this person want? Because a lot of the people that we're marketing to are very busy. So
Mhm.
how do you initiate that relationship, say, over LinkedIn or over email or over another method where you can't have that face-to-face conversation?
Well, that presupposes that I go to them and I sell my services to them,
Hmm.
presumably to people that I've never met and that have never heard of me, right?
Right. That's the
Right.
scenario I'm painting.
Yeah. I don't do that. Rarely ever. I've rarely ever done it. It's like the cold calling, I hate cold calling and I hate cold mailing
Hmm.
because it ends up in the bin. I always like lukewarm or warm calling or warm emailing. Usually what happens is that I get a referral for someone and then mention that name, so-and-so referred me. And this is what I do, but I always make the connection first, because they're not going to hire a person that they don't know, but hopefully that person that referred me has good connotations and good memories. So they recommend, oh, if Andrew referred Paul, then this guy must be serious. This must be good. So I want to have that introduction. But more often than not, people find me. And I think that's my approach. I call it kind of reverse marketing, because a lot of the marketing training in voiceover circles is how can we find clients? And it's so incredibly hard. It's much easier for clients to find you. But then the next question becomes, how can you ensure that clients find you?
Right.
And I think that's become kind of my specialty. And whenever people ask me to do webinars and seminars and presentations at voiceover conferences, that's my main talk, really. How can you make sure that as a voiceover in a sea of thousands of voices, your voice gets heard and picked up? How can you be that needle in the haystack of many haystacks and many needles?
And so what tips do you have for, say, somebody that listens in on this podcast and they've dove into it, they've bought the equipment, they've already started coaching, they have their demos. What do you feel like they need to round out those edges so that way they can be found easier?
First thing they have to understand is that they are in business. Like any other business, you have to do sales and you have to do marketing and promotion and branding. And that's where a lot of people fall short, because they've learned how to work the microphone, how to interpret a script, how to buy the right equipment, and how to have somebody make a nice website for you. But you can have all these things in place and yet zero jobs. They think, oh, as soon as I sign up for the pay to play and send them my credit card number, oh my gosh, my inbox will be inundated by job offers and I'm off to the races, And then they wait and wait and wait and do audition and audition, audition, and nothing, radio silence. And they forgot about the next steps. You have to toot your own horn. And I think that I've become pretty good at tooting my own horn. So, which is quite a stretch for a Dutch person, because the Dutch people don't like people who are conceited and very boastful. We have to be modest. That's the Calvinist part of the Dutch mentality.
Right.
You don't have to shout from the rooftops, look at me, I'm the best. I'm going to stand out. But I always tell people it's not enough to be outstanding. You have to stand out. Question is, how do you do that? We have to develop a brand which encapsulates the essence of what you have to offer and what distinguishes you from the rest of the world in voiceover land. And to me, it's my nether voice aspect. There's two aspects to me. The nether voice, the part that I'm from the Netherlands, and I have a voice from the Netherlands. So if you want a person to speak Dutch, if you need a Dutch voiceover, you go to a nether voice. And also my neutral European English global accent. And I'm really, really big on that. So I have highlighted that in all my communications, in all my demos, in everything that I do and say and the way I sound. That's something I keep on stressing over and over again. But then the next thing is, how do you get a platform that magnifies what you have to say? Because we can do it just by ourselves, but we're like electric guitars that are not plugged into an amplifier. You need to find that amplifier so that the strings that you pluck actually are making music. And to me, a big help has become my website. I work with a guy named Joe Davis of Voice Actor Websites. And one of the things that he does is SEO, search engine optimization. And before he works with any client, he always looks at how does a website score, rank in terms of an overall worldwide ranking of all the voiceover sites on the web. And guess what? He found that of all the voiceover sites in the entire world, there are 2 or 3 websites that always end up number 1 in search engines. And I'm usually number 1 or number 2. Now, that's where you want to end up. When people type in voiceover or international voiceover, neutral English accent, European accent voiceover, that's ideally what you want. You want to be number 1 or 2 in what clients are looking for. Next question is, how do you get there? And the way I got there is through content marketing, the whole marketing aspect. And that's why my blog comes in. Because the trouble is that most people, they think they're done once they have a website. When you have a website, it may look great, but it's like a fish store where you have nice fish in your window. But when you don't change that fish regularly, it gets rotten and smelly, and people don't want to see it and don't want to hear it. And the problem is that if you don't refresh your website every day or every week, there's nothing going on. Why should a client want to visit you? Why should Google think that your website is important and has something to say if it's the same 2 years ago and will be the same 2 years from now? So you've got to have something that has fresh content, fresh fish offered on your site. And to me, my blog is that fresh fish. Every week I write a new blog in which I put all the buzzwords that people are looking for in text that are picked up by the search engines. And all the algorithms are there, because what people forget is they think, okay, as soon as I put nice pictures up on websites and nice video, search engines find it very hard to search on video or on images. They still search on texts. So the more buzzwords you have on your website that keep on changing and refreshing, the more content you have that's worthwhile and relevant and it is visited by other people, the more you can trick the Googles and the Yahoos of this world into believing that what you're doing is relevant and appreciated. And so the more people I get to my website through my blog, the more I tell the Googles of this world that what I do is somehow remarkable. Whether it is or not, I'll leave that up to you, but apparently it works. And so once I had this website with a tremendous ranking in terms of SEO on the World Wide Web, it's become a magnet for clients, a magnet for colleagues. I'm telling you, people say, clients don't read your blog. Well, a lot of them do. A lot of them are interested in what's going on behind the scenes, but a lot of fellow freelancers as well, who are, for instance, video editors and who are photographers, who are script writers, and they know people who hire voiceovers, but a lot of my colleagues read my work too, and I get 40% of my work through other colleagues, through referrals. So to me, it's that huge magnet that brings clients to me. And so I don't have to approach clients anymore for, please hire me. I'm so special. I'm the best voice in the business. People love my work. So please pick me. That the movie Shrek where the donkey says, pick me. I feel that so many people, they're so desperate. And desperation is one of the worst ways to attract clients. So that's a little tip that I lift up from my trickery and my strategy of how to attract clients.
I hope you enjoyed learning about how Paul keeps his fish fresh, so he is always top of mind when someone may need the talent that this wonderful artist brings to the table. In our next episode, we talk to Paul about a traumatic event that changed how he views the voiceover industry and resources that helped him along the way to become the well-known voice talent that he is today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the VoiceOver Coffee Shop. For more information on guests, new episodes, and more, be sure to visit www.vocoffeeshop.com.